All right, so welcome. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the frontal lobe. Last week we talked about the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the temporal lobe, the occipital lobe, the cerebellum, and the spinal cord. That was the central nervous system. So we're going to break them down to each lobe. So today we're going to talk about the frontal lobe, and that's the one that I colored in all these little sections.
Okay.
So we're going to talk we're going to try to go very general about the little sections of the frontal lobe. And as time goes on, as we do more and more stuff, we're going to talk about the right frontal lobe, the left frontal lobe, the difference in it, and how you can figure out whether or not you're having problems with the frontal lobe and how to direct care for different parts of the frontal lobe. But today it's just basic stuff, and I'm always going to try to keep it very simple. All right, so let's just go through the parts of the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is made up of a whole bunch of parts. And the first part, if we go from the back of the frontal lobe, we go forward, we see the primary motor cortex. This is for voluntary movement of your arms and your legs and your trunk. So when you want to wiggle your fingers, when you want to wave to somebody, or you want to march in place, or you want to move and you want to look at something, that is voluntary movement. Now, the difference between voluntary movement and involuntary movement would be moving my hand, making a fist, and opening up my fist versus my heart pumping. My heart pumping is involuntary. Breathing is involuntary. Gut motility is involuntary. And so this is voluntary movement. Then you have your motor association cortex. Now this is for planning movement. This is for executing movement and synchronizing movement. So I want to plan to move my index finger. I have to synchronize it with my other fingers so that they don't move. That is my motor association cortex. Then we have our frontal eye fields. Now your frontal eye fields, every part of your brain has something to do with vision. That always surprises people. Your frontal eye fields are quick eye movements. My right frontal eye field makes my eye go quickly to the left. My left frontal eye field makes my eye go quickly to the right. That way, when you're driving down the street and you're a passenger in a car and you're watching a sign and you're looking at a sign and it comes out of field of view and you can jump to the next thing. Or you can watch cars drive by and jump to the next car. That's for your frontal eye fields. They do more so stuff than that also. And then we go to your prefrontal cortex. And so your prefrontal cortex, that's you. That's who you are as a human being. This part of your brain right here. This is the last part of your brain to develop. And in women, it's usually about 18, 19 years old. In men, it's early to mid-20s. That's why younger women like older men, because they're at about the same brain level. But this is your personality. This is your motivation. This is who you are as a human being. This allows you to make decisions. This allows you to plan things, your focus, your attention, your concentration. This is who you are as a human being. You have your orbital frontal cortex right here. This is to monitor and control your emotions. This is your emotional. And then you have Broca's speech here, your Broca's area. This is for the voluntary muscles of speech. So that is not, you can comprehend things, you've heard somebody talk, and you want to say, thank you very much, thank you for coming. Well, that is all voluntary muscle coordination. That is Broca's area. So your frontal lobe has everything to do with who you are as a human being. We'll talk, I'm going to trace it for you. I decide that I want to wiggle my finger. That is going to be my prefrontal cortex. That's me. I want to wiggle my finger. Now, my prefrontal cortex, my primary motor, my prefrontal cortex talks to my association motor cortex because that's where the planning comes in. That's where the synchronization comes in. That's where the execution comes in. It then talks to my primary motor cortex, and that sends impulses down to my finger. Now, I need to know where my finger's at. That's my parietal lobe. That's also my cerebellum. I need to know how quickly my finger is moving. And I need to coordinate all the movement there. That's my cerebellum, and again, my parietal lobe. And I need to actually start it. That's my basal ganglion. So those are things we're going to get into. So it's more than this. I'm making it simple. You decide to do something. Your brain knows how you did it, how to plan the action, and your primary motor cortex says, do it. And that's all voluntary. This is who you are as a human being. Your frontal lobe is what makes you have fun. Your frontal lobe is what controls your emotions. This is your willpower. This is who you are as a human being. And it's a great part of your brain. So whatever you do, don't damage this part of your brain. Don't damage this. This is the worst thing to damage. And sadly, what we see is in the case of Alzheimer's, in the case of a lot of cases, we see a lot of problems with that. We're going to talk about that in the future. But that, in very basic nutshell, is your frontal lobe. So now it's time for an exercise. And I want to lead off again with the most important exercise. Is to start. Thank you very much. Is to get started. Something, just walking, anything. Just set that time of the day that is your time for you. The greatest investment you can make is in yourself. And doing these exercises is not an exercise. I don't want you to look at it as an exercise. I want you to look at it as an investment. If we could change a word from exercise to investment, people would, oh, well, I want to do that, Dr. Moore. They would gladly jump on board. But we call it exercise, and somehow that has a negative connotation. So, a great frontal lobe investment is fixation. For me to just stare at the camera. Fixation is actually not that easy because you're going to take a point on the wall and you're going to just stare at it. And you're going to stare at it, and you're going to stare at it. And what you're working is actually your frontal lobe, because your frontal lobe is in charge of inhibiting everything else. Inhibiting you from losing focus. Inhibiting you from losing concentration. Inhibiting distractions. Inhibiting you from movement. And so you'll find, it's not, you can blink by the way, you'll find it's very difficult just to maintain that focus, that attention, that concentration, and inhibit your eyes from looking all around. Your ADD kid, frontal lobe problem. That's why they're all over the place. They can't stop that negative emotion. They can't stop that distraction. Depression, frontal lobe's not working very good. You can't stop that negative emotion. So just fixation. Last week we talked about planking. And in the video I said, fixate. That's going to work your frontal lobe. Another great exercise for your frontal lobe, prefrontal cortex, word searches. Crossword puzzles. Drawing. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You're going to answer this yourself. If I asked you to draw a picture of a tree or to do a crossword puzzle, which one would you like the least?
Drawing the tree.
Drawing the tree. That is the exercise that you got to do. The exercise, the investment that you like the least, that's the one you need the most. And so those are great frontal lobe exercises. This is who you are as a human being. Remember, when you go to a party, you want to remember who people are. You want to remember your family. You want to remember your relatives. You want to be the person God made you to be. That's your frontal lobe. That's your prefrontal cortex right here. Work it. Use it. Exercise it. Use it or lose it, as my grandma would say. So, I'm Dr. Robert Moore. I want to thank you again. Please like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Or send me a text to 810-374-0304. And that way you can text me a question that you have. You want to call our office, call 810-374-0304 to get online with us. We appreciate you. Have a blessed day. God bless you. Thank you.